Okay, it is 3 o'clock, so good afternoon and welcome to the April 9th pre-planning meeting of the City of Frederick Planning Commission. Let's see, we have no consent agenda and we have two continuances. Anything to add to that, Gabrielle?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, just a quick note or two. The Winn Pennytel annexation has requested another continuance for up to 60 days, bringing us to the June 14th meeting. The anticipation is that we will have some information on the issues that were discussed at the first hearing for that, and then we'll bring it back at a workshop before moving forward to an actual public hearing. So hopefully this time will allow us enough time to do that with the full 60 days. Were there any questions on that one? On the architectural item for Monocacy Center Lot 6, they were at the workshop last month. We had a good discussion about the changes they were proposing to their architecturals. The applicant did ask for this 30-day continuance so that they could come back to workshop in just a couple weeks on the 19th to continue the discussion, show some of the information that you had asked for updates on to the commission, and have a workshop level discussion before moving to the hearing. So that is that 30-day continuance, and you'll see that on the April 19th workshop agenda. That's all.
Okay, that is great to know. So I should have announced that even though I don't believe we actually need a quorum for these meetings, all the commissioners are here and I can see you all. So does anybody have any comments or questions to this item? Okay, a lot of head nodding. That is no nodding. Okay, so we have a miscellaneous item, and that is the Kellerton Land Bay B. Is that Sherry's?
No.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't have it right.
Might be
Yes,
Charles's.
It's Charles's. Yes, Charles.
Hey,
Anything
good
new?
afternoon, everyone. That one is mine.
Yeah, so take over.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We've got, might be a typo there. It's Land Bay B Kellerton, but the full story is the continuing architecturals there, this specifically being the Hayward Town Hall model. It was presented at the workshop and we received no public comment, minimal comments, questions. I suppose just one small note to bring up, given the opportunity here. They had provided on their second submission just a quick amendment revision to the plans. It kind of created a separate or a different floor layout, some different dimensions, and what that ultimately meant for the architecturals was a different orientation of the garage as related to the entrances. However, that did not alter the scope or the compliance that we saw as staff in the review. So a slight change there, but nothing that would trigger or create any issues in the most recent staff report or for the final hearing. So.
Okay, I'll do a quick roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, no questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sparati.
Commissioner Sparati, no questions or comments.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson, I have no questions. Thank you.
And Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, no questions. Thanks.
Okay. So Charles, I just wanted to confirm the amendment that you just talked about, that is something new that has happened since the workshop? Or was that what triggered this?
Actually, that was seen on our recent, the plans in front of you for the hearing itself are the same plans that were seen at the workshop as well. I believe the footnote there on plans states March 1st. So that was something the applicant had mentioned on record at the workshop that I just wanted to, maybe this is a good opportunity to make a note that something has changed, but no issues.
And something has changed since the workshop, but no issues?
No, ma'am, just it was acknowledged at the workshop. This being the initial submission, DRC comments, and then yep, the workshop resubmission, which created a kind of mirrored the garage on certain elevations. So the applicant mentioned that, and no worries there.
Okay. All right. If anybody else, if no one else is, any more comments? No? Okay.
I just really feel like I want to color in each one of these houses and put them up on a wall.
That's fun. It's a fun thought. Okay, I think we're good with that then. Then we
Thank
go
you.
to new business, and we have items D and E are both for Tuscarora Creek. One is the preliminary plat. So now we have Sherry.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. So just an update from the workshop. Nothing really with regard to the site plan, but for the preliminary plat, the applicant did submit the modification for the 4 lots that will have access onto the extended Meadow Lane. So that information is provided in the staff report. And I think that was the only update from the workshop. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, we will do a roll call. Commissioner Manalis,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati,
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Strawson,
Commissioner Strawson, no questions.
Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, no questions.
Sherry, on page 6, where you are saying to take off the note of the connection to the neighboring property, that extension of Meadow Lane, that was something that was what happened since the workshop, or part of the addition since the workshop?
Yeah, I think that was an old note that was before we knew that Meadow Lane was going to be extended, and it was supposed to have been connected to, I think, Copeland Place. So that note just needs to come off the plan, the preliminary plat.
Okay. All right. Sounds like there's no more questions on the preliminary plat. So let's go to the final site plan. So nothing has happened since the workshop, and you do have a couple conditions, but nothing new. But anything else that you want to say about this?
No, just the conditions, just a couple of things that were missed with the last submission. So they'll just need to address those. They're very minor. So we'll just need to correct those on the site plan before they resubmit for approval, unconditional approval.
Okay, we'll take a roll call. Commissioners, Commissioner Manalis,
Hello, no question or comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati,
No questions or comments, thank you.
Commissioner Strawson,
Commissioner Strawson, I have no questions. Thank you.
and Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, no questions. Thanks.
Okay, we are tromping right along here. So next we have Highland Trail zoning map amendment and master plan. And my question on this is, they are lumped together in one staff report. And since this is the first of 2 public hearings, would we then take them together on Monday night?
Gabrielle would probably best answer that one.
Gabrielle?
I think that you would, but I'll let her confirm that.
Sure, thank you. Our staff presentation is definitely intertwined with the different elements, since the zoning map amendment, when you're placing a floating zone, is really a discussion about how much the plan supports the request for that floating zone. So they're so hard to kind of separate. So that's why we've structured them in the staff report the way we have. We will plan on presenting it as one thing. And then I would recommend, and as we move to the second public hearing too, we might want to take a break to offer 2 options for public comment on them separately. And we can figure out how to structure that, but just to make sure we're giving fair and ample time for people to weigh in, we might want to, make a roll call or not a roll call, but a call for comments on the rezoning and see if there are any takers, and then a call on the master plan as well, just to make sure we're giving ample attention.
So that last sentence you said, does that apply, in your opinion, to this first hearing also? Do separate roll calls for both?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
absolutely. And then once we get to the second hearing and we're making motions, they will be separate actions altogether. So,
Okay.
and we'll structure it separately, separate findings and things.
Okay, let me do a roll call for questions and commissioner comments. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manelis, I haven't gotten that far yet, so I don't have any comments or questions yet.
All right. Commissioner Sparati.
I kind of in the same boat. I have to Google some things as I'm not entirely sure what a floating zone is. So, but I will, right now, no questions or comments.
That's a great question to have, though, if I can interrupt, because I think that that's probably not a question that you alone have, and something that we probably didn't spend enough time in the report actually really explaining what that is. So there are certain base zones that are applied throughout the city. Every property is given a base zone, and that's a zoning district like GC, general commercial, or R4, R8, light industrial. Those are all what we call Euclidean zoning districts, and they're base zones. We then have floating zones and overlay zones. The overlay zones are like the historic preservation overlay. We have a highway noise overlay and a wellhead protection overlay and a creek overlay. So what the overlays do is, I like to explain it as a bonus level of regulations. You have the regulations of the base zone, but then you get a bonus layer of regulations. And that bonus or overlay layer is intended to promote a certain goal or objective. So for the Carroll Creek overlay, it's very design oriented. It's everything that all the properties that run along the periphery of the creek through downtown. So the overlay regulations get into building design and location of parking and those sorts of things, much like the historic preservation overlay, where the base zone still applies. So the things like the minimum lot sizes and the number of dwelling units you can have, all of those regulations still apply, but then you have this bonus that, in the case of the historic preservation overlay, enforces the guidelines that aim to maintain historic preservation design standards. A floating zone, conversely, actually comes down and replaces the base zone. So it becomes the new, there's a base zone only in so much as when you remove the floating zone, that's what you would go back to. But the floating zone basically takes over. It's the zombie zone that then all of those regulations apply. So in this case, the mixed use 2, the property is currently zoned light industrial, M1. When the MU2 zoning district's placed on it, there will be basically no vestiges of M1 regulations that apply. It'll all be subject to this new floating zone. And that's the reason why it's reviewed in conjunction with the master plan, because you guys and the mayor and board are then looking at the floating zone, the request to actually place this, and you're looking at what is the design proposal? Will it achieve the goals of the mixed use zoning district? So that's why they're so hard to separate, and it really is kind of one conversation, because you only want to apply the floating zone when you find that the master plan itself is going to implement the goals of that floating zone.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay, we learned a lot. We learned what a zombie zone is.
It's
And
right
I
up my
forget what-
alley. I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Oh, and the bonus zone. I'm sure the developers would say that is a bonus zone.
They love when I say that. The bonus regulations. They like they want some.
Commissioner Sparati, anything else?
No further questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson here. So I have not been able to print the staff report yet because my printer ran out of ink. So I haven't looked at it, but I did still keep the version from workshop. So until I get ink, how similar are they? Is there anything significantly different in the new one that I need to be aware of?
Just a couple of things. They did get their provisional road certificate, and there are some conditions that have been placed with that will need to be satisfied before they get the full one. Same with the schools. We did go back and retest. The applicant had requested to be retested at both the 10-year as well as a reduced amount of time to 3 years. They did fail again at all 3 levels for the 10-year period, but for the 3-year period, they only failed at the elementary school level. So the applicant has indicated that they would go into the pay the fee, the mitigation fee for that for the elementary school. So those are the big changes from then.
Are they actually likely to be able to get to the right stage that they need to for the 3-year test period?
Well, they would have to get board approval for that, mayor and board approval,
Right.
to be able to reduce that.
Okay. All right.
Then the construction would have to occur, and that the only other request where we've seen a ask to reduce the time period is in the context of multifamily, because it all comes online at once. It's not a matter of selling 50 or 60 homes a year.
Right.
They get their financing and they construct these all at one time. And with the market in the situation it is currently, and I guess for short foreseeable future, they anticipate that they would be able to accomplish the project in the 3 years. If they don't, their certificate becomes void, and then they're back to kind of square one.
Okay.
One thing I did want to note with regards to the school, the ask to reduce the time, and that the applicant might express concern or dislike is we have reached the conclusion after talking with the legal department that the mayor and board should actually also be the decision maker on that request, not the planning commission. The code expressly says the planning commission. However, after we kind of picked apart the code, looked at some of the legislative history of the amendment and really what the ask is about, we concluded that because the master plan authority lies with the mayor and board, that request, which is triggered by the master plan, and requires a finding that they're achieving certain goals of the comprehensive plan by reducing it, also lies inherently with that master plan, and so should lie with the mayor and board as well. I don't know if the applicant was super amenable to that decision, but we kind of said that it was. So once again, that'll be part of your review, but you will not have to make a formal decision as to that reduction.
Is that going to be the case just for this particular application, or is that the case for in the future for any of those kind of requests, just out of curiosity?
It would only be the case for a master plan that's being reviewed in conjunction with the rezoning, so you guys review master plans that aren't associated with rezonings. Kellerton was a great example where there's no rezoning at all. In those cases, you would continue, or if it were just a standalone site plan, you would continue to be the authority on that. But because the rezoning is kicking in, that's
great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Alderman Russell.
No questions other than I get to make it either way. Or I have to make it either way, depending on how you look at it.
So actually, Joan's questions and your responses, Gabrielle, were my questions, but I have sort of one follow-up. On this thing with the school certificate going from 10 to 3 years. So this is just curious. You said the certificate becomes void, they're back to square one. How would that work if they're in the middle of construction? You're on mute. You're still on mute. Yes.
Sorry. So they have to have permits issued. They could have the permits issued and still be under construction. So they would have to have all of the permits issued and approved, and they could still be under construction. So if they got the last permit approved on, 2 years and 364 days into it, or they could still continue to construct.
Okay. So all the permits need to be approved within the 3 years.
Right.
Okay.
And then,
That's helpful just to see how that works. So
and construction could occur, we wouldn't stop them from constructing at that, at that point. All of the entitlements are there. They've gotten everything approved.
I seem to remember we did this fairly recently on the Market Street multifamily unit. Was that the project?
Ox fiber?
Ox fiber, yes.
That might have been it. Okay.
Wasn't it also the senior housing down on Motter Street?
That,
Or was that
we
different?
I went back and I was trying to piece that together because they were trying to change a couple different things going from the age restricted to not. I think we did, however, they also changed their age restriction covenants and retested, and I think that's when they asked for the reduction. Those were the two other examples I could come up with.
The Ox Fiber and the Market?
Sharp Square.
Sharp. Okay.
And and those were both under the previous version of the APFO. When we updated the APFO, that went into effect January of last year, so we were working on it in the fall of 2019. I don't know that it's as descriptive as it could be, but there were really no criteria before then for the planning commission or mayor and board in this case to consider when you would want to grant a reduction. We did add some general language that says, if it's aiming to help support goals of the comprehensive plan, and those two projects were ones we had in mind when we were looking at that language, because you had a low-income housing tax credit project, you had a seniors project, infill. And so those are the kinds of considerations that we want the planning commission, the mayor and board to make when looking at why would you reduce this time period? What are what kind of goals and objectives are we achieving besides just speeding up the pace of this project?
Gabrielle, would it be too much trouble to resend the new APFO ordinance? Or send a link to it, or
yeah,
it's a while since I looked at it, and it sounds like maybe it would be a good idea to look at it before Monday's meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's an easy one.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on either of these items? Commissioner Manals.
I do have actually a question, and I haven't again looked at this last one, so it may already be in there. But as we look in regards to the rezoning request, can we kind of have a map of the area so we can see the surrounding area that has the different zones? I don't know if that's already provided. I don't know. Is it already provided?
I know there was a map in the applicant in the application packet, but I'm not sure if it had the surrounding zones. So we can provide that for you.
Okay. Thank you. That was my only question. Thanks.
Sorry. I did also have one other thing I wanted to point out with regard to the road certificate and and part of the traffic study, which hasn't been completed yet. It's still pending, but in looking at the traffic study, it was concluded that there were some road inadequacies, Monocacy Boulevard between Storage Way and South Street, and the Monocacy Boulevard intersection with the I-70 westbound ramp and Gateway Plaza. It was determined that they would not be adequate. The section 4-13C3 of the codified ordinance allows the commission to determine that existing roads are adequate if the adequacy can't be achieved without alteration or removal of any existing structures or planned structures for mitigation. So in this instance, you have the existing Gateway Plaza development that's there, and it would be difficult for any mitigation to occur in that area. So we would support the finding of adequacy on the basis that the Gateway Plaza development's a constraint, and that through the required contribution toward the city construction improvement project to widen Monocacy Boulevard to 4 lanes between Storage Way and South Street, that the applicant has provided as much mitigation as reasonably possible. I see Sherian popped up, so I don't know if he wants to add to that, but I wanted to make sure you guys saw that in case you have questions about it.
Oh, I just wanted to make one correction. The traffic study has been accepted and we issued the certificate as part of that finding is that the staff would recommend to the Planning Commission to approve, I don't want to technically call it a waiver, but make a finding that the city and the developers have incorporated the extent of improvements that we could incorporate into that particular intersection, and would recommend, make a finding that a waiver be approved for that intersection.
Okay. Thank you, Cherian. Joan?
Yeah, so practically, how is that going to impact traffic in that area? Because especially that intersection with, you know, between the ramp on Monocacy Boulevard from 70 and Patrick and into, that's already really crazy. It's a very difficult intersection to get in and out of almost any time of the day. So practically, if we accept that it's adequate, how is this new development going to affect traffic in the area?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not uniquely or a direct result of one particular development. But it's a regional issue with the capacity constraints along that corridor, anywhere from East Patrick Street to South Street, beyond to East Street. So I think the city's take, at least from engineering view, we need to have broader solutions. So one of the more immediate things we're working on, or a couple of things we're working on, is to improve capacity at East Patrick Monocacy intersection. That's ongoing. So we're going to get started with that, which has been initiated by RIN, and all these developments are contributing towards it. The second part of it is, if you look at the whole stretch of Monocacy Boulevard, the only segment that is not improved is the segment between East Patrick and South Street. So that's the last piece that need to be improved to the 5-lane section. Gateway's Plaza, which is being developed right across from the ramp, will do a major portion of that improvement, which leaves half section still unimproved. So the need is really come up with a public project of probably close to $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million to make that capacity improvement. So what we have done is to identify that as a capital improvement project and have conditioned these applicants pay a pro rata share towards that major project. So the two ends. So those are kind of the big picture of what the needs standpoint, and how do you address the traffic issues. So the key component of this, that for constructing that 5-lane section, and a couple of things that are going on. So the Meadow Road interchange, for going into the county, was supposed to take away about a third of the traffic at that. So the failure is because you have traffic coming from East Patrick trying to make a left to get westbound on I-70. So a lot of the traffic was coming from the county further east, and the opening of the Meadow Road interchange was supposed to provide some relief. What we've seen is that haven't really affected, because the ramp had just opened a few months back. So we don't know if traffic actually shifted. It's because Monocacy Boulevard now open. You're putting a lot more traffic onto Monocacy Boulevard. The bottom line is that so we're trying to understand the traffic patterns to some extent. So to one way to address that question is to kind of push that traffic to East Street and use the East Street.
Also is not great.
Well, you don't go as far, so yeah. So, but I mean, people have an alternate way to get to the westbound or eastbound I-70 at East Street. So
Yeah.
that's sort of one way to address that um, capacity constraint. We're also pursuing with the State Highway Administration to have an on-off ramp directly from Bowman Farm Road, Airport Drive area, to have a direct on-off ramp to I-70. So there are bigger global issues that we need to solve these capacity constraints. So it's just kind of we don't want to put a pin one location and say that's going to solve everything. We have a big broader problem to solve. So, but all these kind of feeds it, and I think from a city standpoint, we need to accelerate that CIP project to improve monocacy between particularly Storageway and South Street.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Dorothy, you had your hand raised to Commissioner Manalis.
Yes, I no longer have a question. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on either of these items? Okay. I knew that Gabrielle has an announcement that she'd like to make.
I did quickly just want to take the time to embarrass Charles for a second. Today is Charles's last official meeting as a city employee with us. He will be staying on, which is much appreciated, and will be much of assistance in a part-time capacity to help us out. It's been a very busy time, and the workload's changed a lot with the advancements we've made in digital submissions and all of this. So it's so much appreciated. But I just wanted to take the time to really thank Charles. He has been tremendous. He has learned a lot in a very short period of time under very strange conditions, where it definitely changes how you relate to people and how you learn and how you communicate. And he's been amazing, and he's been so easy to work with, and we will miss him very much, but feel very lucky to have him around for a couple months. So this is not the last time you'll see him, but I just wanted to recognize his efforts and contributions over the past year plus with the city. So thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
Charles.
Yeah, no, hey, thank you, everyone. I don't have much to say. I'm fortunate enough to work for an absolutely amazing supervisor and amazing team on the planning department in both branches. So a difficult decision for me to make, and I think I'm in a unique position right now to stay on a little bit part-time. Thank you, Alderman Russell. But I've enjoyed presenting the projects that have been given to me to you all at the Planning Commission, a few that are continuing, so you will see a little bit more. And yeah, just thank you to everyone on my team here. And it's been a real pleasure, and without sounding cliche, a real honor to Frederick's an exciting place. So he'll see you guys soon, and on Monday, of course. And thank you, Gabrielle.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, Charles.
Thanks.
Ditto. So are there any other comments, announcements, or etc.? All right, so then we will see each other Monday night at 6 o'clock at the April hearing. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.